Welcome to Climate Center, Climate Conversation with Kamrul Chaudhary, episode 42nd. Today, we are pleased to have His Excellency Ambassador of Italy, Nanjita Enrico, and Dr. Ghazi Khalikuজ্জামান Ahmed, Chairman PKSF and Coordinator of Bangladesh Climate Negotiation. So with them, we will have an engaged conversation on climate policy. You all know that climate is changing, and IPCC assessment report 6 in its working group 1 report alerted all of us in the red. And we are going to have COP26 or United Nations Framework Convention Climate Summit in Glasgow come October 31st and November 12th. Before that, in Italy, who is the co-host, are organizing in consultation with incoming COP presidency, the pre-COP. And right now, we are also having in United Nations the Climate Week on the sideline of General Assembly. Bangladesh Honorable Prime Minister has already reached New York for General Assembly and also climate conversations. So without much ado, I would like to ask Ambassador of Italy, Enrico, Your Excellency, to initiate the discussion, especially focusing on the preparation for pre-COP in Milano.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Chaudhary, for first of all for inviting me to this conversation. Very interesting for us. I mean, to give also this platform for telling more about, I mean, what we are doing in preparation of the COP26. Probably you all know that we are in a co-partnership with the UK in the preparation of the COP26. And we will host in Milan two main events, that is the pre-COP26, and before that also the Youth for Climate Driving Ambition, to involve, young activists from all over the world, and to listen their voice, their suggestions, also on practical solutions. And this event will end with a final document that will be taken into consideration by the ministers at the pre-COP 2026. As I said, it's an interesting discussion, and I want to be on the level of the conversation as you invited me, so we can speak a little bit more, let's say, without, enter too much in technicalities, because it is also a very technical issue. But as we are preparing and focusing on the pre-COP 26, I think that is a much more political, in a way, event, because the main aim of the pre-COP 26 is to reach a common understanding on the key political issues on climate change, and there are many of key political issues to discuss, and all our actions, of UK as with the presidency of the COP26 and our co-partnership for that, we have worked a lot in many ministerial conferences before, to arrive at the appointment of the pre-COP and COP26. And also we have prioritized, the theme of climate change and energy in our agenda for the G7 and G20, because UK has the presidency of G7 and Italy has the presidency of the G20. So it is a long path toward Glasgow. And because the political issues are many, and there are some remaining issues to be discussed and to agree upon. So the pre-COP has these ambitions to reach, let's say, a political understanding on the main issues and to guide the technical, let's say, negotiations of the COP26. As we all know, the goals of the COP26 are four: mitigation, adaptation, finance, and collaborations, transparency, implementation of the rule book and Article 6, let's say, of also of the Paris Agreement. We all know that this is the last chance, and probably all, as you mentioned, also this final report on global warming. So nobody can deny anymore that there is this threat, and we have to do our utmost to reach a total decarbonization within 2050. So this is the main objective, let's say, the main goal of the COP 2026. Italy, of course, UK, and the European Union in general, I can say from as the Italian side, the UK has left the European Union, as we know, but the goal and the objective remain the same, remain common. And so we are doing a lot, also at the level of, how to say, at the level of ambassadors. In our common job, we have made a lot of action of advocacy in all countries, and we have done in Bangladesh so far. I mean, I'm talking about our actions in Bangladesh to raise awareness on these main goals of the COP26 and try for each goal, of course, depending also on the local circumstances, to convince local governments to raise their ambition or to do more in terms of finance, in terms of collaboration. So a long work of preparation towards COP26 that has involved, I mean, also our everyday action, I mean, also at level of ambassadors during this year, but I can tell, or I can say also last year, because I mean, the COP has been postponed in 2021, but the action was started already before. So there is still a huge amount of work to be done to be successful at the COP26. And what I can say, and then I give the floor also for other intervention before entering in the details maybe of, let's say, talking a little bit more about also the two events that I've mentioned, but also, I mean, the actions that we have done as president of G20 let's say, to prepare, I mean, the COP26 and to reach a general consensus. What I can say that this is a responsibility of all of us, and all countries should work more and should come to Glasgow and before to Milan with big ambitions. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much for setting the tone of this conversation, Your Excellency. You are absolutely right. G20 is a bloc which has contributed 80% of the global emission and can help rescue the global village, the entire planet, by say, 3/4 of the say target of 1.5 degree temperature regime. If we want to keep that goal alive, G20 can alone say have 75% contribution. If they can raise the level of ambition, they can have a stick card. They can also enhance, say, net zero by, say, having 2030 target and also 2040 target. That will be helpful for the entire global village to cut back emissions global. And also raising the adaptation goal, raising adaptation ambition, and also say finance goal. Then also, as you have, Excellency, indicated that collaboration is very important, and collaboration in terms of framing the rule for market mechanism, non-market mechanism, cooperative regime, as enshrined in Paris Agreement Article 6, Article 6.2, Article 6.4, Article 6.6, Article 6.8, Article 6. Blah blah. So, if we want to mean business, try to implement effectively, fully the Paris Agreement, then we need to work robustly. And this is our last chance, as also IPCC indicated, the scientists indicated, and also United Nations Secretary General also made a clarion call. So I think this is the high time. This is our last train to Glasgow.
Yeah.
Then there will be no train for reaching 1.5 degree temperature. With that, I would like to go to Dr. Kazi Kholiquzzaman Ahmed, our chief negotiator. Kholiq bhai, your take, your reflection, wisdom.
Thank you, Kamrul. His Excellency, the Ambassador of Italy, has raised most of the basic issues. And one of the key things he has said that I have experienced over the years is that it is political. You see, in the end, whatever the experts discuss, even the diplomats, they also discuss. In the end, it becomes political. I have seen that. I was coordinating lead author of the third IPCC assessment. And when we finished the report, I was in the committee for writing the summary for the policymakers. There, science took lead and politics became important, even when we were writing a scientific report. And this negotiation, I've seen always, you go round and round, you say things that are very relevant from a scientific point of view. But when you come to the conclusion, you come to a conclusion that is very political. And that's why we make some progress, but we don't make as much progress as we would like to. For example, this rule book thing, that's outstanding. It was discussed, but this is very critical. One of the most critical things we have not been able to agree. We have to raise our ambition, and how many years, 5 years, 4 years, when are we reporting, and all the other items in this Article 6. So I hope this will be one of the major issues in this COP, so that we get the rule book complete and we make our own assessments, or those who are not responsible to make their own assessments, LDC. Not every year, but the developed countries will probably On the community acquisition, also I think financial crisis. Now we committed 12 years ago that we wanted to really this year's board was agreed to potential
Good morning. As we know that climate crisis is killing people both in rich countries and the vulnerable countries like Pakistan. So we are here today at pre-COP26 to take distinguished recommendations and the opinions from our speakers that is invited from different embassies and parliamentarian sector. We are here to make an urgency about the smoke screen and climate markets, and further to push for the climate resilient net plans. Now we will look forward for the opinions and the best recommendations from our panelists.
So the main thing we want out of COP26 is that commitment to net zero. So for all countries to come forward with their commitments as was agreed in Paris, and then to help vulnerable countries like Pakistan. I am very, very convinced that Pakistan has a big leadership role to show. Prime Minister Imran Khan has very strong environmental credentials. The Billion Tree Tsunami shows what you can do for nature-based solutions, and I'm quite excited about building that conversation with business, the private sector and youth, so that Pakistan and others in the region can be a real part of driving change in Glasgow.
Things are going in a way that is not favorable to humanity's continued well-being. And this is a life-threatening approach we recognize. COVID will probably control this year, next year, maybe it will take another 2 years. As happened in Spanish flu and Asian flu time, 2 or 3 waves, and then we have got control. And this will probably be controlled, or we'll learn to live with. But climate change is completely different. All the governments, is the one thing, all the governments became very concerned, developed or developing, and they all put in resources to find the vaccine. And they found it in 9 or 10 months. That usually takes 5 years, 10 years. Now, there we see deaths just in front of us, or people suffering in front of us. But on the climate front, we don't see that. And that's why probably it doesn't get into the political mind so much as it should, that we have to act quickly. And IPCC tells us some figures. They probably think these are some figures, not dead people, probably, the political. I'm talking about the politicians, essentially. I saw them speak in COP after COP. They used to come towards the end, but in the Paris COP, they came towards the beginning, and that probably helped. Otherwise, we would not probably have gotten the Paris Agreement. Because some of them stayed on for the whole period, some went away, but they remain in touch. But when they come towards the end, after the so-called, I'll say so-called the experts, us, we have discussed, we have did our rounds, and we have agreed or disagreed, or we got some conclusions from the chairs and so on. They come with written speeches and make those and go away. So that's why previously not much progress. This year I hear they will probably be coming at the beginning, probably. Hopefully that will be an incentive for those of us. I'll call ourselves workers. They work to work on because they get marching orders. One other, I will say one more thing and then stop at this stage. And that is one of the things we used to say. Nobody speaks about that anymore. common but differentiated
responsibilities
and respective abilities. This is something we don't hear anymore. Their country circumstances vary. Bangladesh has made commitments, other countries are making commitments, but they have a limitation. And LDCs are, of course, treated differently, but there are other countries, developing countries, they can't probably some, not all, some of them are heavily emitting. They should come forward. And there I see the difficulty now. About last I saw, 42% of the countries, not all of them developing or LDCs, have not submitted their revised MDC. I don't know if it is still there or some more we have received. So there is a reluctance, I think, on this front. And this is the, and I don't know, those who have already submitted their MDCs from the developed countryside, as well as from the heavily emitting developing countries, whether they have raised their ambition. We have to raise ambition as quickly as possible, so that the warning that we have received from IPCC, we can respond to that. But we can't even agree after how many years we will assess that. So therefore, this is a very, very political, as the ambassador said. So how do we get around this politics and get into the real business of moving forward in terms of mitigation, in terms of adaptation? We need more and more adaptation now, because things are becoming worse and worse, and particularly on finance. Finance also, just one more. Finance also, maybe Italy or some other country has given money to the DCF. But there's a long process, 2, 3, 4 years before they accept a project. Question after question after question, unnecessary questions. I have seen many of them. There was a webinar and the Director General of DCF was present. I raised that question there. But projects are not all that bad. But this is a process, I don't know. Why so cumbersome? If you submit a project on something, after 3 years, it may become so much worse. The money that you needed 3 years ago may become 3 times more. So there has to be some kind of understanding that we have to reduce the time. Maybe I would say generally we must reduce to 6 months. Either yes or no, we can't fund it. That's something else. So this is one other thing I think we should be discussing. Not just providing money, but those who are expected to receive, they can access it as quickly as possible.
Yes, as you said, accessing, the question of accessibility is a huge problem for the developing countries, especially the most climate vulnerable countries. Your Excellency, say, as you have pointed out in your initial comments, that it's a political, say, pre-COP discussion, because it is a ministerial discussion, and ministers are going to guide their technical negotiators, climate negotiators, to deal with trans issues. So you have also flagged a couple of trans issues. This time, hopefully, you will elaborate those. Excellency.
Yes, thank you so much. And I would like to be rather optimistic in the results of the next appointments in Milan and in Glasgow. Also, I mean, in light of all the efforts that have been done so far and that continue also before, the Glasgow, at level of G7, at level of G20, and all other ministerial that are involved also other countries, where all these aspects that we have mentioned, the access to finance, then the COVID, the green recovery, then the NDC, all have been already tackled, and there are some already some, let's say, common understanding, and maybe there are some not, minimum
some ministerial engagements. Some ministerial engagements are also there.
I'm referring to the G20 ministerial conference that we have organized in Naples in July this year. And in that framework, first of all, it has been the first time that in a G20, it has been discussed about climate and energy, like one interconnected issue. And all ministers have agreed on 58 actions that has been considered as necessary to boost effective and full implementation of the goals of the Paris Agreement. So to pursue a sustainable energy transition and global level in the next year. So 58 actions. There is a common understanding, I would say, unanimously, let's say, decided. But two actions remain still open. One is to accelerate decarbonization in the next decade by fixing a date to phase out unabated coal. And another one is to stop international public financing of unabated coal power generation and phase out fossil fuel subsidized within a certain date. So these are two, of course, main issues, of course, to be fixed before, the COP 2026. But we are engaged to continue the discussion with other G20 partners in a new summit of G20 that will be held in Rome on October the 3rd and 31st. So we are continue our efforts also at G20 level, and these are, let's say, two key issues, but already many, let's say, agreements have been reached on main actions to guarantee a sustainable development, and with the respect of the goals of with the respect of the goals of the Paris Agreement. So many steps ahead have been done, also in trying to reach a political consensus on many key issues. And there have been other ministerial conferences, for instance, in March 2021, on climate and development, and where access to finance has been discussed. Mobilization of quality climate finance and creation of a fiscal space for climate investment. So in these ministerial, and then lately also in July in the UK, another ministerial conference organized also in partnership with Italy, where, the main topics of the COP26 have been already pre-discussed also there. So that's why I would like to keep, a quite optimism, that we will see many countries, the large majority of countries arriving in Glasgow with a higher ambition on all the topics that we have discussed so far. Then the pre-COP will, of course, have to put everything in a sort of political guidelines for the technical negotiations, as I said before. And at the pre-COP, I've been invited all the key stakeholders, for the COP 2026. So first of all G20 countries, and then the most, let's say, relevant countries on climate change. And I'm very glad also that Bangladesh has been invited also in a representation of the Climate Vulnerable Forum. And since, it will be a discussion about adaptation and loss and damage, the rule book, as we said, Article 6, finance, transparency, and come on time, just to see a little bit the agenda of the pre-COP, let's say, on the main issues that for sure will be discussed in that occasion. So I am quite optimistic that a common understanding around these political issues can be reached at the pre-COP 2026.
Thank you. With that positive note, I think I would like to go back to Dr. Kazi Kholiquzzaman Ahmed, the chief negotiator of Bangladesh. For your last word.
I'm agreeable that there are some lights that we can see. For example, one has been mentioned, the phasing out of fossil fuel that has been discussed in G20. You said G7 also discussed that, I understand. And G7 identified two things as the major problems facing the world today. One is, of course, climate change. The other is inequality. So that's very, very interesting. The inequality has been raised to a very high level as a problem. Inequality among countries, inequality within the countries. And when you address climate change, now when climate change happens in terms of natural disasters, we see in all the countries, regardless of whether it's a developed country or developing country, the people who suffer most are the poorer segments of the society. And that's happening all around because where they live, how they live, and how they travel for these. And in developing countries, there are certain extremely vulnerable areas where they live. So that is something that needs to be climate justice. I think that should be brought in, but this is something we don't very much discuss. So that will, the fossil fuel, if we can phase out, that will be quite helpful. So the other thing that that G7 also discussed was that biodiversity. They will look at that biodiversity to 30%. That's it. They will try and address at least 30% of the biodiversity. I don't know whether G20 has addressed that part of the problem. This is a problem, although it's not a climate thing, but it is an overall environmental issue, which is very serious in certain countries. And on top of that, the climate change, both together, is making the situation worse. Energy and climate change, I think that's one of the very good things, because energy is the prime source of greenhouse gases. And that's why these two together, meaning that something might be agreed upon how we can minimize. Now these are discussed in the conferences and meetings. Now when it comes to, again, a bit non-optimistic. So these pre-COP conferences and discussions, we used to have bilateral discussions with various countries also. We get very positive reactions often. But when it comes to negotiation, I hope this time that the sounds that we have heard will be reflected in the agreements that we reach in the conference. so that we can make progress. Because there is no way out, whether it's developed and developing. One of our environment ministers used to say, "We are all in a boat." I quote him often. "We are all in a boat. The boat is very strong. Those who are poor in one side and the rich in one side. This part probably will go down first, and the other part will also follow eventually." That was an example he used to give. So we are all in it, and that's why the collaboration issue that you have mentioned is extremely important. And there I would again remind ourselves of the common but differentiated responsibility and respective abilities. That is now probably forgotten. We don't discuss that very much. So if we get the follow through of the promises, if not promises, of the intentions expressed by these various meetings. Also on the other side, the G7, the LDC meeting, etc. CBF meeting held in Dhaka. That was very, very useful. So if there is follow through of the intentions expressed in various meetings, I think we'll make some progress. And on that count, I'm also with you, Ambassador, being optimistic, but cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. So thank you very, very much. It was a great pleasure to have you to Your Excellency Ambassador Enrico of Italy and Dr. Qazi Kholiquzzaman Ahmed of Bangladesh for your prudent comments and in this conversation. Hopefully, we will see you again in some other episode of Climate Channel. So on behalf of Climate Channel, I would like to extend heartfelt thanks to both of you, Ambassador Enrico and Dr. Qazi Kholiquzzaman. With that, I would now like to stop here. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Kamal. Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Excellency. You are in Dhaka, maybe we'll